Your next news update, 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. I've lost count of the number of Pauline Kael moments the left has offered up in the last 72 hours. Here's another one. Stephanie Ruhle, MSNBC. Of course, MSNBC. Stephanie Ruhle doesn't understand why people don't understand they're winning because everybody that she knows is winning.
This is about a huge portion of our population who rejected the current system. And what we have to solve for is why. We are the most powerful and prosperous nation in the world. This country is winning. So I want to know why so many people in this country are feeling like we're losing, whether it is the economy, immigration, or, for lack of a better term, wokeism. We have now let misinformation become the accepted information. It has washed over us. Elon Musk, he buys Twitter, and then he uses it almost exclusively to be a propaganda machine, and we've accepted it. We've accepted a narrative that despite an actually great economic recovery, the vibes don't feel good. So we want to reject it and get something else. And the person we are now betting on to change all of it is Donald Trump, a man who did two almost impossible things. He won the American presidency twice, and he drove a casino into the ground. What will the future hold now that America has just decided that we're going to F around and find out?
Everybody around her is winning, so she doesn't understand why there's some people that have this vibe like things aren't going well in America. It couldn't be that things aren't going well for them.
They've lost touch with the middle class. And just, as Bernie Sanders said, the black working class, the Latinos, I mean, they're just so, they're so self-absorbed and celebrity chasers, and I don't know.
The Matt Iglesias, who's a Bloomberg columnist, left. He posted this. Here's my pitch for common sense Democrats to reform governance in the blue zones and be competitive in the red zones, delivering a coalition that can win on health care, reproductive rights, the safety net, and quality for all. He's got 9 points here, but I'll just give you a couple. The economic self-interest for the working class includes robust economic growth. We should, in fact, judge people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Ever heard that before? While race is a social construct, biological sex is not. Academics and nonprofit staffers do not occupy a unique position of virtue relative to private sector workers. Politeness is a virtue, but obsessive language policing alienates normal people and degrades the quality of thinking. We are equal in the eyes of God, but the American government can and should prioritize the interests of American citizens. Those are, generally, fine and dandy. Here's the problem. The problem is that it seems to me the driving force in that party are ideological social justice warriors, new Bolsheviks, as I call them, whatever you want to call them. They are ideological. And there is no moderating from that position. For example, a good point, a good riff that Sean Trendy went on over at Real Clear Politics. The best, you're talking about this, well, if they just moderate, you just adopt some of the things as first principles that you just heard from Matt Iglesias from his post. Well, that's easy to say. That's easy to say. But that's not the dynamic. The best way I can explain it is this, writes Trendy. If you're modestly woke but aren't deeply immersed in social justice politics, participating in popular culture has been the equivalent of being Catholic at a decade-long Protestant evangelical revival. Even if you agree on 90% of Christian doctrine, the constant bombardment with the messages that emphasize the 10% disagreement is extremely off-putting. Well, I think it's important to acknowledge it's easy to say, hey, just lay off the proselytation, damning people who agree with you on 90% of the issues. But that's easy to say. But for evangelicals, the doctrine is their core. It's offensive to tell evangelicals to lighten up because they view their identity as turning on fine points of doctrine. The same is true for the social justice warriors. Telling groups or individuals who feel marginalized, or who I would argue have been indoctrinated to feel marginalized, to accept half a loaf is not only not an option for them, it's deeply offensive. And so how do you solve for that equation, Stephanie Rule? For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by Michael Baharaeen, who is the chief political analyst at the liberal Patriot. You can also get his writings at michaelbaharaeen.substack.com. Michael, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
So, reconcile Stephanie Rule and Matt Iglesias for us, if that's possible.
Yeah, look, there's going to be a period of reckoning here for the Democrats. It's going to be interesting to see what direction they decide to go. There's definitely a faction that wants to chalk this up to, ignorance or misinformation, or just simple campaign tactic errors. I think there was Simone Sanders was on MSNBC saying, "Oh, well, this was due to a misallocation of campaign resources. Harris should have not been spending so much money, putting up an ad on the Las Vegas Orb." And if she just made a few more decisions like that, that would have made all the difference, right? And this is kind of missing the forest for the trees. I mean, I think it's tempting for a lot of people who benefit from kind of the current trajectory of the Democratic Party, the current predominant ethos of the party, to say, no, this is just, if we just fine tune one thing here or there, we'll be fine. We'll be able to win next time. And I think it really misses some, longer term structural problems with the party and its coalition, especially.
Well, give us some examples of those structural problems you've identified.
Sure. So, I think after Barack Obama won the presidency twice, and he won by pretty large margins, it convinced a large portion of the party that basically, quote unquote, demographics were destiny. So essentially, as the country was growing more diverse, it was going to benefit the Democrats, and they could afford to lose specifically kind of the white working class vote that had been kind of moving away from them a little bit, but they had still it still required a significant portion of that vote. And they said, no, it's okay. The demographics are changing. We'll be able to just tap into this. And, because of the skin color of certain voters, they will automatically vote for us. And of course, as we're learning, and as some people even said then, that is way oversimplifying things. And so now what you're seeing is that as some of the ties of, say, Hispanic voters or Arab voters to the party become a little more tenuous, and these are populations that I think we discussed last time, they tend to be a little bit more culturally moderate to conservative in a lot of ways. And so if they don't see it as in their interest anymore to be voting for the Democrats, if the Democrats aren't offering them something that is compelling, they're going to vote more in line with their values, with their ideology, and in a lot of cases, that's going to take them to the Republicans. And this has been something that's been very hard for the Democrats to come to grips with. It kind of runs counter to certain prevailing ideologies in the party that suggest that, anybody who belongs to, a quote-unquote marginalized community, cares first and foremost about that piece of their identity, and therefore they're always going to vote on that, and therefore it's always going to lead them to vote Democrat. And they all must be ideologically liberal, and that's just not true. And so I think, to the credit of people like Iglesias, and there are some people in the party, I think right now they're a minority of the voices out there, but they understand this. The problem is going to be, are they influential enough to kind of overtake the Stephanie Rules, the Joy Reids, those voices that very much are resistant to changing course right now.
Well, part of it, too, is getting the rural vote. I mean, they tried during the DNC. They brought in country singers. They brought in American flags, which I had not seen, for each seat. And then, the camouflage with the Walsh Harris hats that people were wearing, that didn't work. So what's their plan of attack next?
Yeah. Well, I think look, from a visual representation, that wasn't the worst idea in the world. Like, it's good to be a party that, embraces America, embraces patriotism, tries to make an appeal to areas of the country that kind of have drifted away from you over time. The problem is that I don't think people bought it.
Yeah.
And that gets at almost something a little bit deeper than just the party itself. I think this gets to the changing coalitions of the party, and the Democrats now, which is wild to think about this compared to even 12 years ago or a couple decades ago. But the Democrats are just don't look like the party of the working class anymore, the party of the common man and woman, right? They are increasingly, their base is made up of college-educated, sort of urban-dwelling professionals who are very culturally liberal and in some ways kind of have or exude attitudes toward people from working class or more rural communities that, they're sort of backwards or, that they're voting against their own self-interest is a common one. So, people see that. And so, even if Harris makes these appeals, which I think was good, it seems inauthentic to people, whether they find Harris inauthentic or they see kind of the broader party and its kind of attitudes and relationship with rural America as inauthentic.
Well, I mean, the other thing to just simplify too is just, pandering to me doesn't pay my bills.
Yeah.
And you have all these fashionable views that I'm supposed to prioritize or I'm supposed to ignore when they have a negative impact on my life. And I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to do that, economically. I can't afford to do that if I've got a girl and playing high school volleyball against dudes. I can't afford it anymore. I can't afford your fashionable views.
Well, this is interesting. I think this is another example kind of how the sort of college-educated professionals in the Democratic Party almost live in different realities than a lot of other people in the country do. Sure, everybody kind of suffers from inflation, and that includes, people who live in major metro areas and are high-income earning aren't spared from that, but it doesn't hit them as hard. Right? Like they have more purchasing power than a lot of other people do. I mean, you saw this in the 2022 midterms. One of the top issues that cycle was inflation, and that was kind of widespread among the country. But for Democrats, the top issues were abortion, it was democracy, it was climate change, and it was issues that I'm sure, they sincerely are held beliefs, but it kind of set them apart from a lot of the rest of the country that was really feeling the effects of these higher prices at the stores. And so, the Democrats in swing states, the Democrats were who knew that this was something people cared about, campaigned on inflation, right, and on cost of living. But the national message was abortion, 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 and some nods to democracy, right, whatever that really meant. And so, it's just kind of another way where the fact that, like, Democrats are in some ways often in bubbles that separate them from a lot of the rest of the country, and especially Democrats who staff the administration and staff campaigns. They don't feel these effects the same way that a lot of other people do, and it leads to then tactical errors in how you message to people and how you kind of the message that you have and what you're offering people too. I mean, Harris kind of touched on the economic issues from once or twice, but her core message also was abortion, and it was democracy, and it was the impending onset of fascism.
Yeah, something else too. You retweeted a quote from Chuck Schumer from 6 or 7 years ago, talking about for every working class voter that we lose, we get 2 suburban women. And it's really telling because they had jettisoned the working class not long after Obama complained about people clinging to their guns and religion. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the working class didn't pick up on this, and the Republican Party didn't pick up on it either because they didn't Red Rover them over en masse the way that Trump has. And so it's been, as you say, things don't just happen out of nowhere. This has been a trend over the last decade plus. And Trump consummated it in 2016 to a large extent, and then the going back to essentially 2008 to 2016 as we did 2016 to 2020. It just drove the point home where it was unmistakable in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got some numbers here in front of me just to give you a sense of how this shift has happened. So between 2012 and 2016, and I'll just be clear, in 2012, both college grads and non-college educated Americans broke for Barack Obama by about 4 points each. So it was very much parity that cycle. You fast forward 4 years, and college grads went for Hillary Clinton by 15 points. So that's a shift of 11 points. And non-college grads went for Trump by 6 points. So that's a shift of 10 points. And over the last, a couple of cycles, that gap has grown even wider. Biden won college grads by 18, and Harris looks like she's on track to do so by about 16, so closer to Hillary Clinton's margin. And Trump is on track to win the non-college vote by 11 points, which is the highest on record. And again, this just is a complete reversal of how the two parties used to be viewed. The Democrats were for a long time the party of the common man and woman. They were the party of the worker. I mean, they were winning overwhelming shares of people who didn't go to college, people who were low income earners. The Republicans were kind of the party of, the wealthy and the business class and stuff. And that has completely changed now. And Trump has tapped into something that, for whatever reason, seems to have taken Democrats by surprise.
Michael Baharaeen is the chief political analyst at the Liberal Patriot. Also, you can get his writings at michaelbaharaeen.substack.com. Michael, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Paul Jenkins, owner of Bancroft Architects and Engineers, a service-disabled veteran-owned small business providing design solutions for clients, including the VA. When looking for a trusted banking partner, Bancroft was lucky to find that partner in Signature Bank in 2015. With Signature, personal service goes beyond a login and a PIN number. My staff and I have the comfort of knowing that we're dealing with real people who know our business and care about us as individuals. Signature helped finance our new state-of-the-art facility, and Bancroft looks forward to further expanding business opportunities for disabled veterans